Brad Gorman from ARIN is going to talk about Stand Up for Your Roots. And he's come all the way from Virginia earlier in the week, not just today. I'll hand you over. Brad.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Fergus. I want to get a little bit lighter here, hopefully get some information out that will be helpful to you with what we have done at ARIN in the last year, the status of where we are, and I think where we need to be. So talk a little bit about security of the early internet, or lack thereof, the goal of RPKI, what a current deployment is of RPKI, both in ARIN and a little bit of outside, and then talk about the services and the development that we have done recently that will make it easier for you to create your ROAS and use RPKI. So early internet. When BGP was born, it was easy. The network, what becomes the internet, was small, and everyone knew everyone else, and there was trust. Everybody expected the folks to do the right thing. But we know BGP was made to be easy, not to be secure. And over time, when it transitioned from an educational platform to a commercial platform, people decided, well, you know what? I'm going to get out on this money. I'm not going to sell anything. I'm just going to steal someone else's. So we really needed to come up with a solution that would be suit this growing infrastructure, this internet, and make it a bit more secure. So what came up next was RPSL. RPSL is a standard language that most internet-connected networks use to build routing policy. And it was great. It was a way that you could share information about your network and about your customers with somebody far, far away. And it was built into a loose infrastructure, an ecosystem called the Internet Routing Registry. And there were a number of databases that run and hold this information that you create, these objects that you create, that help others to understand and know what your policy is and say, this is where we need to go. But the problem is the majority of these databases in the IRR don't authenticate. If you have $500, or if you have a method of sending email to an operator, they'll accept your changes, they'll accept your entries, but they have no way of confirming that you are the resource holder. Now, at ARIN and the other RARs, we maintain databases where we do authentication checks. That if you are trying to make a statement, a route object, to say, hey, my route is coming from my ASN, we confirm that those resources are coming from, and those statements are coming from, the rightful resource holder. So we don't discourage the use of a third-party IRR for reasons of redundancy or uses of redundancy, but understand that the RIRs are the only ones that can authenticate records or objects in the IRR ecosystem. So what's coming next? What is the next best tool in the routing security toolbox? RPKI. So what are we trying to do with RPKI? What is its goal? It provides cryptographically signed method for an internumbered resource holder, allowing them to make an authoritative statement about the origin of a prefix announced to the internet, a route origin authorization. Long words. I'm sure many of you have read that before and said, hey, that's great. What the heck does that mean? Really, what it does is it gives another tool in the tool bag for routing security for operators to use to make better decisions on how they want to route. How do they want to handle that information, that messages that they're hearing inside of BGP, and say, this is good, this might not be good, this is really not a good idea for me to pick this up and pass it along to somebody else. RPKI gives those operators the opportunity to say, hey, somebody made a mistake out there, I can feel comfortable about it, I can ignore it, but that's great. But RPKI also gives the opportunity for providers to say, hey, somebody out there could be doing something wrong. And that is the promise and the goal, to reduce the impact of someone trying to hijack your routes. That's what, that's what we want to do. That's what the community wants RPKI to be for you. So, like I said, as the internet grew, it grew from a research or educational infrastructure to something much larger, where folks use it for e-commerce. And it grew in such a way that you don't know who's on the other side. And if you want to get information from A to Z, there's a whole lot in between that you don't know about. So the way that BGP has worked is, as long as we remembered, autonomous systems send routes, somebody listens to them on the other side. It's been just the way it's been. That's the way BGP works. The routes get passed across and open, easy. That's the way it's been. That's the way it is. So as these nefarious actors, these bad actors, these people that are trying to do something not right, the way BGP is, it's standard, even through development. It's still an easy protocol. It's not a secure protocol. So if a rightful resource holder makes their announcement across the side of the world and the data is received to the other side, great. But this bad actor, this person trying to steal your information or interrupt your opportunity to sell your wares or otherwise make money on what you're trying to do, they too can send information across, pretend and say, hey, this route is actually mine. And the way BGP works, if you don't have any other reason to say or any other reason to not believe it, that route could be entered into your routing database. And in fact, depending on the hardware that you use, it may become the preferred path because it was the most recent update that came in. So what are we trying to do with RPKI? We give people the opportunity to make this statement, this signed statement that says, these prefixes are mine. The other side of it is the network operator that says, I am going to look at this information in this other infrastructure, this RPKI infrastructure, and say, I'm going to pay attention to this new box and say, and have an opportunity for a better decision. So if a row is created and it comes across and network C says, hey, what I read in RPKI, what I'm pulling from the information that you, the operator, have put into your ROA and sits inside of this validation infrastructure, I'm going to pass it along. This is good. This is great. And if the bad actor in this case tries to make an announcement and sends it and it goes across the same path to this network who's making a decision that says, this is where I'm listening to this, and hey, that doesn't match what I've seen in RPKI, I'm not going to pass it along. But the fact is, the internet has lots of paths to get from A to B. And there are equal cost paths that this bad actor can take, and the same thing happens. Route is received at the remote or the destination. There's no other way to say good or bad. So as more and more operators over time have started making decisions based on validity data, the benefits of RPKI are starting to show. So if the initial announcement that made it through, that comes through from the rightful resource holder, more networks now are making decisions that say, I'm going to stop listening to these invalid announcements. And you can tell that this network down in the corner is having a really bad time trying to get to the left side of the page. And that's the primary, that's the benefit that we're looking at with RPKI. But with a limited deployment, we're only protecting a little bit of the internet. All of that traffic was traversing all of those ASNs and still making it to a point that maybe not stealing someone's information, but otherwise tasking your bandwidth maybe, or running your processors up. So the way to make this better is, you create your ROAS, and now more networks are taking advantage of this validity data, this set of information that RPKI promises, and saying, we're going to listen and take action upon it. Well, now this bad network actor over here is having a really hard time trying to get into and taking away the traffic that's supposed to come from you justifiably and go across to the other side of the world. And as more operators make those decisions, more and more of the internet is being protected by, or we're limiting the surface area where someone who wants to do something bad is available to them to do what they want to do. So inside of the ARIN region, we've had tools and rules in place that maybe have over time been difficult to navigate through. We've made it hard on ourselves. The adoption rate for RPKI in the ARIN region really isn't terribly good. Less than 20% of ARIN organizations who are able to use RPKI, who are able to create ROAS, who are able to make the right decision, are actually signed up to use it. And it's not good. I'm looking at all of us in the room. That's not good. We can do better. We've created a lot of ROAS. We have resources that are in place, being covered. Folks are making good decisions based on it. But the problem is there's a lot more that needs to come. So these numbers are from the beginning of May. Almost 29% of the internet routes in IPv4 that are from ARIN space are marked as valid. 29%. Globally, that number is much higher. We need to do our part. Now, a highlight, if you want to call it that, in V6, we are ahead of where the globe is at 40, almost 48% of our V6. And that's a good sign, but hey, we all know there's a long way to go. One of the final pieces of this pie is getting resources or making resources eligible to use RPKI. And what does eligible mean? Resources have to be covered by an agreement that will then allow you to use RPKI services, our authenticated IRR. Until recently to use DNSSEC, but we've opened that up. So while 45% looks good, the number of resources that ARIN has as compared to other RIRs is an order of 2. So we still have a lot of addresses as compared to the global that we need to get covered. We can do better. So ARIN has done a lot in the last year. We've listened, I've listened, we've developed simplified methods for you to sign up, to create, and to start using RPKI and make it a great tool that we all want it to be. So 2 basic ways to turn up RPKI. 1, hosted RPKI. And what hosted RPKI gives you is the simplest way of getting started and up and running using RPKI. ARIN will serve, or the RIRs all serve as the trust anchors for resources that they are responsible for handing out. But in a hosted environment, ARIN provides all the cryptographic services. We run the certificate authority. We maintain and publish the repository where your ROAs go. But the only thing that you have to do is make those statements about your resources, create those ROAs. That's all you have to do. You can create those using our API or our web portal. I'll give you a little example of what we're doing, but the fact is, for most people, and 98% of ARIN organizations that have turned up and use RPKI use hosted RPKI because it is really easy. The other way to deploy RPKI is using a delegated model, up-down model, some people, the protocol is called. In this situation, the organization has a lot more responsibility that they've taken on. They are going to manage all of the cryptography. They are going to manage running and publishing their repository. They want all those pieces under their control, but it has a lot more complexity built into it. Your organization may not have the resources, people or otherwise, to maintain an infrastructure, to run the high availability requirement repository. So there's kind of a mix in between, and that mix is, the colloquial term is hybrid. The opportunity is for an organization who wants to run their own CA, who wants to maintain that cryptographic piece, but they don't want to be required to run that high availability server, that high availability repository and publication service. So At ARIN, we have a product called the Repository Publication Service, pretty simple, clever name, where we will host and announce all of the ROAS that you create. It's simple. It is a way that you can take that off your shoulder, that responsibility, and you still get all of the reliability of ARIN running its infrastructure and making sure that your ROAS, the information you put into the RPKI database, is there and available. Now, before you get started at ARIN, you have a few criteria you need to get. Certainly, you need IP resources. You need to have that agreement signed that I was talking about, whether it's an overall for the resources or signing an RPKI terms of service if it's required. You need an autonomous system number, you need an origin. And you need to be of appropriate privilege, role to be able to make these changes. And in ARIN, it's an admin, a tech, or a routing point of contact. But down at the bottom, for anybody who's seen this slide before, we've removed the requirement for needing to sign with keys to create your ROAS. That came from you, something you've asked for a long time. And this is where we've been going this year, and we're going to continue moving forward on how we're going to make it easier on you. So this is our web interface. Our web interface used to be extremely cumbersome to navigate through to get to configure RPKI. That alone, that bothered me when I saw it, when I used it. I was at a network operator, not long before I was came to ARIN, and yeah, it was not friendly. So we now, on our left hand now on our page, 2 clicks, you're now in to every list of every organization that you have privilege and rights to make changes to go into RPKI. When you go to sign up, previously you would have to provide a set of keys. No more keys. It used to be a ticketed process. Our RSD team had to look at it and validate your resources that you had been assigned, you had been allocated. No longer. It's now one-click sign up. You click sign up for a hosted RPKI, your resource certificate is created, and right away, you're ready to create your first row. Easy, simple, streamlined. The form is simplified. Previously, you had to not only access that key pair, you had to put in validity dates. You had to say, hey, my row is going to last for this period of time. I want it to be out there for a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. No more validity dates on here. Well, how is that possible? Why? Well, fact is, we're now re-rolling our rows. Any rows that are created or have been created ever in our database using the web UI now auto-generate. Every 90 days, they will re-roll and get a new 90 days worth of lifespan. So rows are evergreen. They're not going anywhere. They only go anywhere if you make the decision to get rid of them. And we deployed a new API. That API also takes advantage of auto-renew. That API also gives you the ability to do atomic changes. Previously, either whether in the UI or in the API, it was a one-line, one per one, create your ROA, next API call, create your ROA. We have the opportunity now to up to 1,000, more if you'd like, deletes and creates all in one call. And a second or 2 or 3 later, all of those changes are put in. Something you've asked for, something we've delivered. As soon as all those rows are created, it used to be a horrible navigation to get back if anybody did it previously. Now we drop you right back to the table. You can see the row you created, and you're 1 click away from creating your next set of rows. We got to do it. It's on all of us in 2023 to start creating ROAS and making statements about your resources. We have to stand up for your routes. The fact is, creating ROAS for your resources don't just benefit you, they benefit everybody. They stop unnecessary traffic from going across the internet. They stop people from having to deal with invalid announcements as identified by the RPKI. It helps you protect your own resources, but it helps others protect their networks. RPKI has been documented at stopping or even blocking attempted hijacks. There are a number of examples out. You do a quick search, those answers will come back to you and show you and tell you what's been done and how it's helped. More and more service providers are now telling you, hey, if you want to sign up and have business with us, if you want to use us as a transit provider, if you want to use our hosting services, they're telling you, before we end up signing that paper, you need to create a ROA. It's easy, create your ROA. And the fact is that RPKI is still under development. It's under constant development. There's more things being dreamed up, more creative uses being developed, more standards are coming out on how to make it better, how to improve it, and it's going to continue to be improved. So, one more time, stand up for your routes, create your ROAs. It's easy. It's 2023. Let's do it, and let's make the internet a better place for everyone. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to ARIN at our help desk at our 800 number. There is an opportunity to use a chat feature. You can open up a ticket through our web interface, or, last resort, please, you can send email to the routing security team, where we can answer more detailed questions about maybe your deployments, about how our RPKI works, how it will help you. Many opportunities at ARIN for you to reach out to and just generally get some assistance. That's it.
Thank you, Brad. We've got one remote question and one in-room. We'll do the in-room first.
Hi, Rich Compton Charter. I have an idea for a way to increase the number of ROAs. You should be, if you create a ROA within like the next year, you get entered into a raffle for a PS5. It seemed to work last night, so that was my idea.
I like that. I like that a lot. I might create my own ROAs.
Nimrod.
So we have a question from Matt Pitak. Is the 19.5% of orgs using RPKI a percentage of all ARIN orgs or a percentage of orgs with assigned RSA, LRSA that are RPKI eligible?
That number is based on organizations that have signed the agreement.
Kevin Wallace at doof.net. I use ARIN hosted RPKI. It works great. I just publish my ROAs. I want to publish ASPAs also. When can I expect to be able to do that?
So ASPAs, for those who aren't aware of what they are, Autonomous System Provider Authorization. Somebody's going to raise their hand and say I'm crazy. Okay, nodding heads, I got it right. ASPAs are still in development in the IETF. There are 3 drafts that cover 3 different components of the ASPAs. For an RAR to develop the features necessary to cover what will be a standard in the future, we're hesitant to develop a pre-standard draft configuration. The amount of development effort can vary, but we like to wait until we know that it's black and white where we can move forward and not have to recode things in lieu of a change. So standards right now, I mean, we're in the middle of the year. There has been a lot of communication back and forth recently about some of the final decisions making going back and forth. There was a group discussion held earlier this week where maybe early next year, first quarter of next year, we'll have some of the standards come and be actually ratified, and at which point then ARIN will start developing.
Cool, thank you.
Yes.
Doug Montgomery NIST, does the new streamlined interface show you before committing a ROA its effect on any routes in the current table?
Thank you for asking that question. I had said that we've been making a lot of changes and a lot of feature, applying a lot of new feature requests. Our next deployment, which is coming in July, we're going to be, oops, I better set that down. We're going to be turning on more new features, but what you're asking for, I've been kind of calling route precognition. And that is a feature that we have slated for deployment into the third quarter of this year, where an organization who may have routes already being announced on the internet, we will check for those resources and say, hey, is this, hey, Fergus, man, it's my time. We'll give an opportunity for that resource holder who's announcing those resources to say, hey, you have routes being announced. Do you want to create a row for them? And if you agree, hey, you want to create a row for them, if you do, this is what the likely outcome will be. Or if you have ROAs that have already been created and tell them, hey, this resource is being announced out there, but as of today, as of right now, something isn't quite right. Do you want to fix it? It's information that we have previously not provided to our customers that we are developing towards to do, I think, exactly what you're asking for.
Well, I think all of that's good, but I was talking about a check on the UI that allows you to create a ROA, right? We just heard from Randy, if you make a typo and then it invalidates your route, there'll be some number of minutes to fix it. So a screen that would just say, the ROA you've just entered in the form, if applied, would have this effect on routes. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, maybe I misspoke on how I was explaining what was happening. Absolutely, yes. That will be part of that development later this year.
Thank you, Brad, very much.